Hello, welcome to this week's episode of Tom's Life Lab. Really exciting episode today because I have with me a fantastic guest. My guest today is Chris Marr. He is the Authoritative Coach. I had to say authoritative, right? It's sort of quite a mouthful at this time on a Thursday morning. So Chris, welcome. How are you doing today?
Hey Tom, yeah, thanks for having me on your show. Great, I'm doing great today. I'm really pleased that we get to have time to talk about, people pleasing and what authoritative is and how that shows up for us. So yeah, I'm great.
Fantastic. Well, it's great to have you here. And you are joining us from Dundee in Scotland, I think, today.
Based in Dundee. I'm working out of my cabin here. My wife, Cara, runs and owns a timber building company. So we've got a bunch of these cabins and sheds in our garden here. So I'm out in the back garden in a really nice cabin. This is my little hovel, my cupboard that I work from. So yeah, up in Dundee in Scotland.
Excellent. Well, I'm in the West Midlands and it's pretty chilly here today for a mid-March day, so hopefully you're keeping warm in your cabin there. And it's certainly an impressive bookshelf that you've got that you've got behind you. So
Yes.
yeah, looking good.
Books are everywhere in this house. Yeah, it's great for me, but a frustration for my wife.
Yeah, cool. So Chris, before we get into, you mentioned people pleasing, and that's what we want to get into talking about today.
Sure.
Before we do that, tell us a bit about yourself. What's your background and what do you do with yourself as the authoritative coach?
Yeah, I mean, I've been working with people since a really young age. I was sort of like shoved into like a management role when I was 18, 19 years old. So suit and tie. I remember one of my first experiences of like teaching adults essentially, which is ultimately what I do every day. Was like, here's like these acetates. I don't know if you remember these things, like plastic.
Yeah.
And you put them on this overhead projector. I had to teach health and safety, fire safety, food safety. I'm
Wow.
teaching like hundreds of people that worked for me at the time. So I was like sort of like chucked in at the deep end, you could say, from a very young age to teach and train and coach people. I mean, ultimately, I would never have called myself a coach then, but that's ultimately what I was doing, was coaching and training and teaching. And I think honestly, from a really young age, I was just so interested in what personal and professional development looked like, not just for myself, like massively into it myself, but for other people as well. My dad took me to my first sort of personal development event when I was 14 years old, to an event with Jack Black, and I know that he's maybe not as well known today as some of these other big names, but it's been with me from such a young age, and that sort of bled into a lot of my work. Then really, I'm in my mid-40s now, and so it's been 25 years or so of like just trying to understand how people learn and what makes people tick and how to get the best out of people and help them to realize their potential, and like all the great stuff that goes with that, but also all the challenges that come along with that as well, in terms of like, some people don't want that, and it's like, okay, well, what does that look like? And honestly, this journey, even like 25 years on, it just never ends. I'm constantly learning about how to help people do their best work, like whatever that looks like and what capacity that looks like. And it bleeds across, ownership, entrepreneurship, leadership, management, sales, and then, into people's whole lives as well, right? So we look at when we're working with business people, I think a lot of business coaches or consultants really just focus on the business. But one of the things I do, and I teach my clients to do as well, is work with the whole person, because ultimately what's holding people back isn't necessarily a business problem, but a people challenge, right? It's like what's going on with the person. So, I've just been obsessed with that for such a long time, Tom. It's like you pick up a lot over the years, and then, over that time in a whistle-stop tour, it's been a lot of marketing, I would say, content marketing from 2008, 2009, blogs, then into the world of social media, trying to understand how Facebook and Twitter and all that kind of stuff worked in the early days, and then into really coaching. I would say like the more professional stuff's happened about 2013, 2014 for me, when I really stepped into coaching people a very specific sales and marketing strategy. I did that for about 10 years, and that's where I really cut my teeth on working with larger and larger organizations. So working with the solopreneurs and the small businesses,
Sure.
right through to moving all my work across to America for 5 years and working with 7, 8, 9-figure businesses. And that really gave me the volume and the quality and the quantity of work, the reps, the hours to really work across these larger organizations and work across silos. I know you know what that's like all these different departments aren't communicating with each other. And all through the lens of sales and marketing, right? So it was like all about how do we get these organizations to really communicate with each other across these departments so that they can grow, essentially. That was really like the bulk of my career was based in that sort of space, and I transitioned out of that. It's still a big part of my work. It's like it obviously has to be. You know, a lot of people need that help, but now, you know, I've shifted into building my own brand, the Authoritative Coach, and that is working with a whole range of people, like I said, owners, teams, leadership, where people pleasing showing up, how to have difficult conversations, and really coaching people through all of that stuff that comes with that. So yeah, that's a whistle-stop tour of my career, I would say, so far. A broad range of experience, and I think a lot of it comes down to, like, I just have a broad range of, like, interests. Like, you know, you commented on the books, and, like, I've got, like, a dozen hobbies, you know? It's like, I've got a lot of things that influence me. I kind of like to think that I cast a wide net into the world and pull up, like, lots of different things. And I think that it helps me to bring something unique to, you know, the conversations that I'm having with clients.
Fantastic. I mean, it's great story, and we're going to get more into the Authoritative Coach and what that's all about in a minute. I'm really interested about where your passion for helping other people to get better came from. Do you have an idea about that?
Well, I mentioned that my dad had a big influence on me in terms of taking me to this professional development program. Yeah, I have always wanted to. I've had this challenge. I feel like I've wrestled with it for most of my life to figure out what my value is that I bring to the world. Like, Jim Rohn was a big proponent in terms of, like, I never met him, but I always viewed him as a mentor. And of course he's dead now, so I'll never be able to have a conversation with him. But his tapes, like, run like a... You know, you remembered your favourite lyrics from your favourite songs and you can sing them. That's like Jim Rohn's like that for me. And, you know, he always said, like, if you want to be more valuable, like, if you want to be more valuable to the marketplace, you need to bring something, right? You need to continually learn and develop. And so I've always had this idea of continuous learning. But I would say, like, it's funny, I could give you, like, a crude example of this. I had a lot of friends that are just inherently valuable, like a joiner, a plumber, an engineer, an electrician. And I've never really, like, my work, I don't produce anything. I help people produce their thing or do better at their thing. And so I don't have, like, I'm terrible at fixing things. I can't make something. And therefore you could kind of, like, sort of chips away at you, think, well, I'm not very creative. Not true. I create things in my own way. I create tools, methods, frameworks. It might be digital. You might not be able to, like, it might not be tangible. Sometimes you could create tangibility around these things. But I've kind of wrestled with this and come to a better place, I would say, in my more mature head space. I know that I am creative. I know that I have value to bring to the world. But I think when I was younger, I really struggled to figure out where my place was and how I can, like, what's the value that I'm bringing here. And I think the idea of knowledge work and intellect and information, I think, has become more valuable and more known now than it was, like, 15, 20 years ago. And so, you know, 15, 20 years ago, your value would be determined by what you produce. Like, you did a thing, it's valuable. I am in the type of work where I don't really produce anything. And so I think I'm very much at peace with that now. But I would say, like, that drove me to want to find the valuable thing. So it's reading, like, going into other people's ideas and other people's knowledge, reading the books, doing the courses, trying to turn it into something of my own. And I would say even only in the last, I would say like the last 3 or 4 years, that's really where I'm coming into it for myself. It's like, it's not about other people's ideas anymore. It's actually about my ideas, about how I've filtered that other people's ideas through my own work and turned it into something of my own. And yeah, I think that is, like, what drives me to bring value. And I think with the try not to do the fear-mongering thing, but with the onset of like AI, what's going to happen in the next 5 years? I mean, for example, someone this morning sent me a great coaching prompt for ChatGPT, and it is fantastic. Like, it does the job to, I don't know, maybe 60% that a coach would do, like an executive coach would do for you. And you think, well, right, okay, so what does that mean for knowledge workers? What does that mean for people like me that bring intellect and ideas to the table? And it's like, well, I don't really know, but all I know is like, I feel like I'm constantly like never settling on the value that I bring and continually trying to figure out what that looks like.
Yeah.
But I would say more from a healthier place, like less about fear now and more about just like really trying to figure out how to package up my ideas and bring them to the world in a valuable way for other people.
Yeah, I mean, it was just making me think about AI, because I was, I think you did a post on social media recently about some stuff on AI that I was looking at. I think that people who are in this like knowledge game, I think we've almost got to step up our game a bit, because we can all create frameworks now. We can all create a great framework by going into ChatGPT and doing it. That will provide us with the frameworks, but people are not going to read the frameworks. We have to go out there and we have to engage people and we have to bring them to life. And that, I think, is going to be our value. And I look around and I see some people coaching and I see some people facilitating, leadership development and things like that. And they're just not good at it. And I think they're going to get more and more found out as AI builds. I think we're going to have to up our game.
Yeah, I 100% agree that we are going to have to up our game. And I think that, a lot of the work that we do as coaches or consultants is kind of behind closed doors. Like, nobody's on the outside world is seeing you coaching or consulting. And that's actually the work that I do. It's much more about the craft of communication between you and the client. Like, what's happening there is really important. That's the stuff that we don't see. So you could look great, like your stuff, you've developed all these cool frameworks, right? But they've never actually been road tested. It's more you've done it from the comfort of your armchair, from theory more than practice. I really feel very passionate about the frameworks I produce have come from the work, not from my mind, And I think it's really important. Like, frameworks that work get people there better, faster, right? And that's the whole purpose of a framework. So we could all produce these frameworks, but does it help somebody get a better result faster as a result? Yeah. And I think that we're seeing all this stuff coming out. It looks really great, and you think, oh wow, it's an amazing framework or tool. But I think the question is like you're saying, it's like, let's see you coach someone through that, and let's see what the result is, and does it actually work? So I think a lot of noise is about to come our way. It's going to get noisier out there.
Yeah.
And I think about this a lot. It's like, actually, my job is today, I've got coaching clients this afternoon. My job is to be the best version of the coach that I need to be for them in that moment. If a new framework comes out of that, awesome. If a new insight comes out of that, that's where it all comes from for me, is the foundation of the actual work that I'm doing. And I think that's really important, that it comes from the right place.
Brilliant. So tell us a bit about where this idea of the authoritative coach came from, and tell us about the book as well, which I've had the pleasure of reading over the last couple of days. Really enjoyed it.
Awesome. The word authoritative, like you said, is a mouthful. You need to practice it a few times. I think the one misconception to address is this idea of authority, right? A lot of people think authority, they think power over people, right? Control, manipulation even, right? It can have negative connotations. But the idea of authoritative is like, are you a reliable source? Are you an expert in the space that you're in, and can you express that in a way that provides confidence to other people? Can you turn up in the world and be grounded in your confidence and competence? And so when you communicate, it helps other people feel confident, right? They see you communicate and they go, that sounds really great. I trust this person. This person feels like they're turning up in a way that I trust them and feel confident about the work that they're doing. And so there's this idea, like, if you're a people pleaser, for example, you're going to show up in the world in different ways based on what you assume other people want you to turn up like. Whereas the people that we respect in the world are the people that we know we might not like them necessarily, but we do respect them because they turn up the same way. We know who they are. They carry themselves in a very specific way, and you get this sense of like just reliability and consistency, right? That's more important than likability, I would say, especially in the professional world, but arguably also in your personal life as well, right? This gets bandied about, this idea of authentic self. So authoritative is like an assertive, confident, self-assured person that can turn up in the world authentically themselves without any doubt about any of that, and whether people like them or not is not going to shift them or change who they are. Right, sure. I'm not changing myself based on what I think you might like. It's actually, whether you like me or not is neither here nor there for me. My hope is that we do get on and maybe we do like each other. That would be nice, but it's not going to dictate the way how I change the way that I turn up in the world. That's what we're talking about. It's like wrestling with this, the way that this pendulum swings between need to be liked and turning up as an authority. Knowing that, I think it's really important that turning up as an authority and stepping into your authority is about turning up with self-assured, self-respect, confidence, and being really comfortable with your own competency in the skills that you have as well. Like, there's nothing worse really than, especially in the professional world, where someone is an expert, but they turn up in a way where they hedge all the time, or they're doubtful even about their own ideas. That doesn't give anybody confidence. It's not a very attractive quality. It doesn't draw people to you either. And so it's all of that stuff. It's all in the melting pot there, Tom. I think it's really important to recognize that it's not about power over. It's about how you present yourself to the world, and recognizing that your need to be liked will hold you back from doing your best work or turning up in the right way in the world. But if you're also listening to this and you're in the professional space, your need to be liked is also holding your clients back from getting the best results as well, because your need to be liked is holding you back from having difficult conversations, from giving people the feedback that they need to hear, from essentially doing your job. That's what I think about when I think about authoritative. It's about, just a lot of the work comes from within, I would say. You're going inwards to figure out who you are and who you want to be in this world, rather than like the external world dictating who you are. I think that's really the distinction. One's, to overcome your need to be liked is about internal work, building your self-respect, and you'll stay in that sort of people-pleasing space if you are continually looking to the external world to validate you, recognize you, like you,
Of course, yeah. And the link to people-pleasing, which is, I suppose, wanting people to like you. I know I've got some people-pleasing tendencies. I don't like to think of myself as a people-pleaser. I think I've just got some tendencies to fall into that if I'm not careful. Where did this focus on people pleasing and this link to the authoritative coach approach that you have, like where did that come from for you? Is that from personal experience?
There is personal experience in it for sure. Like it was very organic. It's hard to say the exact moment where it started to become this thing. It was an evolution. It was very much an evolution of this idea, and it's come from many, many places. Yeah, I mean, personal experience plays a big role, right? The reason that I wrote the book was to document the lessons I have learned from the work that I've done and put it into something that might help other people, and it has helped other people, which is awesome. But yeah, I think if I went back about 10 years or so, I remember a very particular moment where it did click for me. Like, what clicked for me was what I was doing wrong, rather than what I was doing well. So I have been teaching people for such a long time, and I understand what that looks like. And then I started to work with my mentor at the time, Marcus Sheridan. We've become really good friends and business partners. He's the author of They Ask You Answer. That's what he's mostly known for. But we started to develop these communication principles about back in 2014, 2015, something like that. Say 10 years ago. It was really what was interesting for me was that I was working alongside him, developing these ideas. I obviously know them intimately. However, there was a 2-day event that we ran where we were coaching people from the stage. Okay, so people had to get up on the stage, present something, and then we would coach them how to improve, how to do it better, etc. And I absolutely botched it. I was his understudy for the 2 days, and I'm sitting there, I'm doing my notes about what I'm seeing on the stage. He's coaching people in the moment, and I botched it. I just made an absolute botched job of it. I was going up to the stage to give feedback, and I felt anxious, I felt nervous, I didn't know what I was doing, I was grasping, none of my feedback was landing. I was all over the place. And it was in this really beautiful theatre, and behind the stage, backstage, we were comparing notes, and I'm just like, why am I not seeing what he's seeing? He looks at someone performing, and he's like, he can see it so clearly, whereas I'm not seeing it as anywhere close to as clearly as him. And of course, one of the things I recognised was that he never learned any of this in a classroom. He has learned this over years of exposing himself to high-stakes situations where he has to help people communicate more effectively. I'm talking decades of this work, when he was a teenager. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not going to pick this up in a few short classes, right? And this is what we would this is tacit knowledge, essentially, right? It's hard to teach, easy to see. You can point at it, but you can't teach it. Really difficult to teach, and that's been one of our big things over the last 10 years, is figuring out how to teach this effectively to people. Anyway, long story short, that 2 days was really painful for me. So I took the next day, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to sit in the seats in the theatre, right up the back, in the sort of shadows, and just watch what he's doing. And honestly, I was like, how can he see it? How can he say what needs to be said? How does he land all his points so well? How is he able to give that feedback so concisely and to the point? How is he able to do it in such a confident, authoritative way? And the thing is, I'm just worried about being right all the time. I'm worried about being right. I'm worried about what I look like in front of the audience that are watching me and the feedback I'm giving. I think the spotlight's on me. I'm making it all about me, right? And so my ego is playing this I always want to be right, as opposed to what does it look like to be grounded in your confidence and your competence around all of this. And so that was the moment where I realised that I've got some work to do on me if I want to be great, right? I'm watching Marcus do this work, and he's able to kind of just, there's no fear of anything, because it's not about him. And so this whole thing was this big piece of work that I had to do was just it's not about me. Don't take these things, it's not about taking it personally. You're not the hero in this story, and it's I had to do a lot of inner work to just release myself from that so I could turn up and be useful for other people,
Sure.
And so I would say that was a defining moment in my journey to becoming a better communicator, a better coach, a better consultant.
And I mean, so much is resonating with me, and I suppose some of my personal challenges about how I turn up in the world and how I turn up in my work. What was the process then for you, knowing what you needed to do, but then actually putting it into practice and becoming the coach that you knew you could be?
Yeah. So there's a few things I'll say here. I'll try and keep a long story short, because it's a life's work, really. Journaling was number one.
Really, yeah.
Journaling's number one. So there's two key components to journaling for me. That was Julia Cameron's Morning Pages. Big deal, right? We're talking 3 pages of handwritten journals per day. I still do it to this day.
Really? Wow.
Yep. And I did the Daily Stoic from Ryan Holiday's work for 6 years. You could see them. That's the pile of completed journals there. They're all complete journals. This is all complete journals. I've got a massive bag, like a bag for life down here with maybe 50 journals in it. So writing, ventilating, getting all these thoughts out. The Daily Stoic being really great for the prompts that you need, right? So why do you find this challenging? Why do you get angry? Where is this coming from? And sort of unpacking all of that. So literally over the course of 10 years, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of words written and produced to kind of unpack all of this. Still do it today, because it's just it's a life's work, really. So I'd say those 2 things are probably the major component of figuring all of that out, figuring me out. How can I be better in the world? I was mentioned 2 other things, which is I don't do it so much now, because I think over time some tools are really useful for you in the moment, and then you can sort of break away from them because you can do it more you do it quicker in your head, right? You can just get there faster. But what
becomes a habit. I
Right,
suppose
it's a
becomes
habit.
a habit.
It's like
Yeah.
a discipline. It's like, yeah, it's just not like it's a tool that just you can use very quickly. But what I used to do for years was I used to take an index card and I would write down, like, who do I need to be today? Like, what type of coach do I want to be for my clients? And I would
Yeah.
write down, it's not about me. Be curious, smile, look like you're having fun. I would write down all the things that I wanted to turn up like to be the best I can. And I sort of had to work myself into this better person, right? And so that, and I would say the third thing that's really quite, I would say the biggest thing, and I think this is hard, you can't pick up a book and do this, but I just did I had a lot of reps and I made a lot of mistakes, and I said yes to really tough situations. You know, a client would say, you know, we want to quit, this isn't working. Like all the bad situations that you can get into, I would just go, I need to experience this, I need to go through this, I need to figure out how, like, what I did well, what I didn't do so well. So there's a lot of very deliberate practice in there, and ultimately a lot of feedback as well. So someone would watch the recording of my call that I screwed up and tell me where I went wrong, and I'd have to learn from it. And so I exposed myself both to the difficulty and to the feedback about the things that were difficult. Like, there's nothing more humbling to your ego than screwing up and getting somebody to tell you why you screwed up and what you need to do better. So I would say, like, and I think there's more to it, but I would say, look, those are the big things that I think helped me work on me.
Sounds tiring and hard work, but you know, nothing that's easy is the thing. It's not the easy things that we're proud of. It's the tough things which get us the results, isn't it?
If you were to ask me to tell you a story about anything, it would always be the story where I screwed up or where I made the mistake and I learned from it. That's the one that sticks with you every time. But the thing is, Tom, it's like I could be doing the same job as somebody else, making exactly the same mistakes as this other person, on the same journey as this other person, but I don't know where it comes from necessarily. But my perspective is always to get as much from the experience as possible. Like, so if I'm going to go do this, like I've got a big project coming up for the next 6 to 12 months, I'm like, if we're going to do this, I want to be exposed to it all as quickly as possible, because I know the exposure, the difficulties, the challenges, that's all going to be part of the growth here. And so it is a growth mindset, I think, really, at the root of it. It's like, what does a growth mindset look like? And I think we've probably just touched on some of the major aspects of it there.
Yeah, brilliant. I want to get on to, before we finish, I want to get on to some like practical things for people out there who are, you know, maybe having some of those people-pleasing experiences or feel that they're falling into people-pleasing at times. Like, what would you say to those people? Like, where can they start with this stuff?
Well, I mean, I think number one is we've got to shine a light on the problem, right? So number one is like, where is people pleasing manifesting itself? And so, and it manifests itself in many different places. I think some places that people don't even realize, right? So an easy one would be things that you say yes to, right? So like, what are you saying yes to, but then you resent it afterwards. Why do I have to? Why did I say yes to this? Why am I here? And it's like, this is a total waste of my time. Why did I say yes to these things? It's like, you've got to be. It's like, so self-awareness is really what we're talking about here. It's like, am I happy here? Is this where I want to be? And getting to the point where you can actually start saying no to things that you don't want to do, people you don't want to be associated with, people you don't want to hang out with necessarily. And it's like, you've been a little bit of agency essentially around your own life. So I think there's this broad one, which is what are the things that you say yes to, but you ultimately feel resentful about in the near future? And obviously, time is interesting, right? If you ask me if I want to attend an event in 6 months' time, I'm more likely to say yes to that than if you said, do you want to attend an event tomorrow? Yeah. And so got to watch out, again, being self-aware about this delay in the pay, like the time that's required of you. So I think number one is like, really, what does it look like to sit down and really write out or design the life that you want, right? So what does my perfect day, perfect week look like? That's a great exercise. So you can go like, well, actually, start putting more important things on your calendar, and start to have something more important in your life that you then have to say no to other things about. I think a lot of people struggle to say no because they feel guilty about saying no. So number one is like, you go, all right, I know I should say no, and then I say no, and then I feel guilty about saying no. So you get it all. You're getting hammered. You're hammering yourself with it. But what you want is the ability to say no and then not feel guilty about it. And the way to do that is to have something more important in your calendar, or something more important you want to spend your time on. And so it's like, what do I want? What does it look like for me to live my best life? It sounds very individualistic, but it's got to start somewhere. And how do other people negatively impact my ability to live a great life? So, for example, like, a lot of people are just tired and overworked and burning out, and like, it's like, man, what would it look like for you to have time in your calendar to get to bed on time? I think a lot of, like, when you look at your calendar, or you look at the time you're spent, like, when you're doing things, I think it manifests itself a lot there. I think it's an easy place to look at. Why are you staying up late, working late? Why are you working at the weekend? Like, who are you doing all of this for?
Yeah.
Who are you saying yes to, and what are you afraid of? So I think about a lot of those things. So I'd start there, but then I'd come down to, what does my perfect week look like? What do I want to be spending my time on? What am I sacrificing as a result? And a lot of people are sacrificing sleep, health, right? Both fitness and diet, right? They're sacrificing everything that's important over, like, turning up for other people. And at some point, that we need to change the way that looks like for us in our life, so that we can be healthy. Like, I always say to people, what does it look like for you to do your best work? For decades, right? Not work really hard for 6 months, burn out, get sick. Like, there's people that go on vacation and they're sick for the whole time. That's because they've worked too hard. There's too much. And I'm like, what does sustainability look like? What does it look like to be disciplined enough over decades? So I think that's one thing. And then I think, like, the inner work that we talked about already, I think is really important. Like, and there's loads of things on the internet that you can go and search for and get exercises on this, but, you know, your own set, like, what are your values? How do I want to turn up in the world? Like, what does it look like for me to feel good about the way I turn up in the world? And what does that look like? And so I think there's the core value piece. Like, when I did the Daily Stoic for all those years, I was like, every month there was like a prompt that just helped hammer home these core values. So it's like, who am I? And how do I want to turn up? And that's the inner work that we need to do there as well. Then, you know, I think there's loads, but it's just one more thing. I think it's like figuring out who you are. There's loads of great, and I think a lot of people have mixed views about these things, these assessments that you can do. They're not 100% accurate every time, but I think once you've done maybe you've done the 5 or 6 most popular ones, you start to get a pretty good sense of who you are. And especially if you can do one of these assessments where you actually get feedback from a real person, they can actually be really insightful. You say, oh, that's why I get, like, stressed out about those things, or oh, that's why I'm not really, this thing isn't sparking joy for me, or I'm not happy, or I feel stressed out or anxious or nervous. And they start to get a better sense of, like, what I'm supposed to be doing and spending my time on. And you know, I think it's just a bit of, like, figuring out who you are and what you want. And, you know, I think there's, like, a distinction between what you need and what you want. And I think that's a good distinction, which really brings you down to, like, vision, essentially, right? Which would be the business way of talking about it, was like, what do I want my life to look like?
Sure.
You know, and am I the agent in all of this? Like, am I bringing my agency to this? Or am I being pulled like a dog on a leash by other people? And I felt like that, I have to admit, for almost my whole life. Just swept up in it, right? And it's like, oh, we're going here now. Oh, fantastic. I'll just hang about and wait for you to do this thing. And it's like, what do I want? What's my plan? I want to spend my time on. And it's like, you know, I think that's... And then working on the guilt that comes with that. Because immediately, I think what happens next is you carve out this time for you carve out time for a hobby, swimming, going to the gym, whatever it might be, playing guitar, reading books, whatever. And you know that time is really good for you, and that you need it and that you want it. But then the sort of guilt comes in, and it's like, but what about the kids, and what about my partner? And it's like, got to make peace with that. You know, you're trying to be the best person you can be for the people around you. And if you're sick and tired and overworked and stressed and, like, frustrated and, like, just firing from the wrong place, right? Just, you know, you're tense all the time. And you're not being good for other people. You need to figure that out. That's on you. One of the things that that's in our marriage vows is, I'll look after me for you if you look after you for me.
Love that.
you know, and that is a big part of like agency, in that it's not up to my wife to help, like it's not up to my wife to make me, like, to do the work for me.
No.
I have to do my work. I've got to get my own coach. I've got my own therapist. I have to, do you know what I mean? I've got to do that work so that I'm turning up and being the best I can be for the people around me, you know? So,
Sure.
you know, I think the guilt can be swept under the rug when you think, oh, this isn't a selfish activity. I'm actually doing this because I want to be better for my kids, my partner, my clients, whoever it is, the people that I love and care about in my life. And I think that's an important distinction to make. It is a selfless thing that you're doing. You're doing the work so that you can turn up and be the best version of yourself.
Brilliant. Yeah, I've got plenty of examples of times in my life where I've done something that felt selfish at the time, but it wasn't selfish. It was actually something that was quite selfless. It really helped other people around me because it helped me to show up for them at my best. So important.
Right. Yeah, the people-pleasing thing can slip in there though, Tom, right? Which is that you go, no, what will other people think if I do that? You know? And that's when you start to doubt yourself, right?
Yeah.
You're like, actually, I shouldn't. And it's like, you know, that's the people-pleasing coming out, the tendencies coming out on you. It's like you're starting to already question it. And you're thinking to yourself, well, what would other people think about me if I did that? And you should be more like, actually, I need this, I want this, so that I can be better for these other people.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic, Chris. It's been a wonderful conversation, and I really recommend your book, The Authoritative Coach, and particularly if you are a coach. I mean, there's lots of stuff in there on sort of broader life and leadership, but particularly as a coach. And I've been thinking since I listened to your book, I listened to the audiobook version, about how I will use some of the practical nuggets of truth and insight in there in my work. So thank you for putting that into the world. Where do you hang out? Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, of course, the book is a great place to start, right? And of course, I'll just say this one thing. It's actually, I would say, about becoming more coach-like in your life, right? Because we can all ask better questions. We can all facilitate better conversations. So the coach-like skill, I think, is transferable in all aspects of our life. But yeah, the book's a great place to start, The Authoritative Coach on Amazon. And then the single best place to go for anybody that wants just more of this would be Instagram. So it's just Instagram at The Authoritative Coach. And like, I'm there. That's the #1 platform that, like, where all my stuff is. And if you, even from there, it's really easy to just DM me and actually have a real conversation with me as well. So that's where I'm accessible and where people can find me.
Excellent. Well, we will link to your Instagram in the show notes. And yeah, just thank you for spending some time with us today. Really enjoyed it, and wish you all the best with your work. And yeah, thank you again, Chris.
Yeah, thanks for all the great questions, Tom. Appreciate it.
No worries. Cheers. See you soon.